debunk and criticize the left's lies and their criticisms of Joe Rogan.
Then you're fake independent media. You're not real independent media. And I'm now going to war because what we saw is a lot of these people like Joe Rogan, you know, I was there. I was on his show 4 or 5 times. He would sit there and nod in agreement when I would make anti-Trump arguments and arguments in favor of a left-wing worldview. Then 3 weeks later, Ben Shapiro would come on and say the exact opposite of me on every issue, and he would nod along in agreement.
And see, let me just start by debunking this.
What's happening, everybody? Tim Pool recently reacted to a clip of Kyle Kulinski and Emma Vigeland whining about him and Joe Rogan on the Majority Report. Kyle Kulinski and Emma Vigeland laughably claimed that they're going to get tough now that people like Tim Pool and Joe Rogan don't see eye to eye with them politically. With that, let's all enjoy a good laugh with Tim Pool, courtesy of 2 of the dumbest, wokest dummies in history, Kyle Kulinski and Emma Vigeland. Let's go.
Can the left build their own Joe Rogan? I see this clip from the Majority Report. Kyle Kulinski and Emma Vigeland talking about Joe Rogan, why Kyle Kulinski is going to war with Joe Rogan and everything he has, all of the issues he has with the man. And in it, Emma Vigeland says that she went on my show with the intention of never getting invited back. Emma, you are always invited to come on this show. It's a laugh riot, and we enjoy having you. Because when these liberals come on these shows, their ideas fall apart, and we're totally here for it. In this viral clip, Kyle Kulinski basically says that Joe Rogan used to nod along with the leftist things he was saying, and then he'd have Ben Shapiro on and nod along with him as well, because Joe Rogan's a moderate. But he's like, it makes me look like a fool because he was just lying the whole time. They claim that Joe Rogan's simply laundering propaganda. I got news for you guys. Perhaps you are wrong. If everywhere you go, you smell dog poop, perhaps you should look at your boot. But let me lay into these liberal pundits who, Kyle, we've invited you on the show numerous times. You won't do it. Now, I often am very respectful when I talk to these people, and I say, I don't mind. I'm not going to cry when Hassan Piker refuses to come on the show, and he does. Or when Kyle Kulinski says, sure, maybe, but then doesn't, or the same thing with David Pakman. We've been trying to get these people in here forever. I don't complain because they host their own shows. People ask me to do their shows all the time, and I just can't do it. I do host a show with guests, and we do debates on the culture war, so we've created a space here where we can do it. But that doesn't mean Kyle Kulinski owes me anything. And if he's going to be hosting his own show and can't travel, I get it. I respect it. Now, that being said, there are a lot of conservative personalities, even big names, who will forego going on their shows to periodically come on Timcast IRL. So I don't think it's all that great of an excuse, but it will be nice. Let's play this clip, and then we'll debunk and
Hey, if you like watching videos like these, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
criticize the left's lies and their criticisms of Joe Rogan.
Then you're fake independent media. You're not real independent media. And I'm now going to war because what we saw is a lot of these people like Joe Rogan, you know, I was there. I was on his show 4 or 5 times. He would sit there and nod in agreement when I would make anti-Trump arguments and arguments in favor of a left-wing worldview. Then 3 weeks later, Ben Shapiro would come on and say the exact opposite of me on every issue, and he would nod along in agreement.
And see, let me just start by debunking this. Certainly, if you make an argument to Joe and you say, actually, I think, we should have universal basic income for these reasons, he can go, oh, yeah, that's interesting. You know, that makes a lot of sense. Then Ben Shapiro can come on and say, well, I certainly don't agree with having a universal basic income because, I mean, first of all, you can't spend other people's money. And then Joe will be like, that's a good point, too. Like, who's going to do the labor? Joe can entertain the ideas and explain why good points are being made. He's a moderate. I'll tell you this. Famously, Dave Rubin went on Joe Rogan's show and said something about building regulation, and Joe was like, what are you talking about? When Joe thinks that something doesn't make sense or there's not a good argument, he does challenge it. So let's not pretend it's not the case.
Right? And so at some point, you got to call a spade a spade. You're not independent media, and you're clearly just a vibes-based voter, right? You cocooned yourself in this right-wing echo chamber where you got right-leaning UFC people and right-leaning comedians, and Dana White, his boss, is super right-wing and loves MAGA. He put himself in this echo chamber. COVID helped to break his brain.
Cope harder, Kyle. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, Dave Rubin? I mean,
so Kyle Kulinski was on the Joe Rogan Experience 4 or 5 times. And Joe listened intently and interacted with his ideas, progressive ideas. And now Kyle's upset that Joe Rogan went the complete opposite direction. Do you know why he listened to you, Kyle? Because it's an interview. Joe Rogan's an inquisitive guy. It's what makes him a good interviewer. He's genuinely listening to your ideas. And if he's nodding along, there are things he probably agrees with. If he doesn't agree with you, trust me, I've seen it, he will call you out. But he also just listens and takes in the information. He's an inquisitive dude. That's a good quality, a great quality. The left had Joe Rogan. He's been a liberal for as long as I've watched his podcast. But unlike most liberals, he's open to new ideas. And you just said that the pandemic broke his brain. No, that was probably another big step towards waking him up. You know, it's becoming cliche now, but I'm kind of tired of the left left me, but that's what happened to everyone Tim's naming here, himself included. Tim Pool, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, all liberals. You had them. You had some of the most influential people in the world on your side, and you fumbled the ball, not us. Why are you angry at us? And Joe Rogan will have anybody that he finds interesting on his podcast. He's not a right-wing echo chamber. He, during the election, started gravitating that way because how could you not? If you've listened to everyone, you really listened to the ideas that the different candidates were putting out, there was one clear choice. So it's not that your stupid ideas could be wrong. It's that he must be wrong. To the viewers at home, do you see how delusional that thinking is? To never be introspective, that it may be something about you and your ideas and your ideology. It's always somebody else's fault. These folks are exhausting.
Come on, the list goes on and on of all of the people who have left the left because the left went nuts. Elon Musk, Colin Wright, need I say more? Now, don't get me started on the classical liberal types who are too scared to say they left the left, whatever. You can leave the left and still be a coward. That's fine. But these people can't seem to get it through their skulls. Perhaps the skulls are too thick. There's a reason why people are saying the left has gone nuts. And it's not that they're trapped in a right-wing echo chamber. You guys are in a cult is the problem. You can't seem to fathom that all of these people recognizing similar things. Emma Vigeland came on my show, The Culture War, and defended adult graphic materials for children. Come on, nobody agrees with that. Lance from the Surfs came on and said, a woman should be allowed to get an abortion whenever she wants. And I said, even at 9 months, like whenever, it's her choice. And I said, you know, can she do meth? And he goes, no, because that would intentionally kill the baby. What? You see, it's moments like that where the left is exposed for having miserable ideas. Now, don't get me wrong. The weird thing is, I'm still largely a liberal guy myself. That's right. I've long said I'm probably like a traditional or social liberal, meaning I actually do think there can be successful government programs and there can be successful welfare programs. And I think there needs to be regulation. I just think we're well overregulated and our programs are broken and we need to weed out corruption. But these people act like their ideas are unique to them, but they're so wrapped up in their cult, they can't listen to anybody else. So I go on Piers Morgan and this woman says something deranged. This lady goes, Tim Pool's a COVID denier who then got COVID and sought ivermectin, which is absolutely 100% false. But guess what? You knew that because you watched the show. And no, I never denied COVID. I did get COVID. I rejected ivermectin. I told Joe Rogan I didn't think it did anything. And I have to be honest, I still don't think it does. I'm not a doctor, okay? So I talked to a doctor. Joe responded, no, it's a protease inhibitor. And that stops the virus. And I'm like, I think it's largely that the people who were taking it were being cured of their parasites and worms in these other countries. So it did look like it was having a profound effect on COVID. That seems to make more sense to me. Joe argued with me about it. But this guy's lying. Kyle, you are in a cult.
And then look at that. He goes full MAGA. And you know what? That makes me look like a jackass because I was the one going in there, taking him at face value, acting kind, holding his hand and walking him through it like he was a toddler on these topics. And then, wow, in retrospect, would you look at that?
Goodbye,
he completely flipped. I mean, we were defending him, unfortunately, way too late, right? When people were already on to, I don't know, man, you're saying a little bit more right-wing things here. And he would be like, well, no, look, here's a compilation of all the times Joe Rogan said base things. He argued for universal health care. He argued for free college. He argued for higher minimum wage and this good thing. And I would show that compilation and go, see, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But guess what? When you decide I'm going to endorse Donald Trump after he lied to your face relentlessly for the entire podcast, telling brazen lies, then I'm sorry, all the charity is gone, all the sympathy is gone, and I have to come to a different conclusion now. My conclusion of you could hold these people's hands and walk them through it and talk.
I'm going to pause real quick and point this out. He said nothing. You know, I'm looking for substance. What did Trump lie about? Wow, what did Joe Rogan get wrong? You said that he was saying right-wing things. So what? I don't care if someone says something right-wing.
That was such a short clip, and Kyle Kulinski said so many truly comical things. He named all these ridiculous progressive ideas and then said, oh, look, Joe Rogan's saying some based things. I think my definition of based and yours, Kyle, are very, very different. So we might all want to come to a consensus on what based means. Then he goes, I went on there, I acted kind. Why is acting kind difficult for you? Like, why shouldn't that kind of be the default? And then, you know, if it gets contentious and you can be a little more aggressive or assertive, why is that tough to do? And I held his hand and walked him through all of my ideas. Who in the world, in the world, is looking for Kyle Kulinski to walk them through his political ideas? Much less Joe Rogan. Just find one person and I'd be impressed. Kyle, no one's looking for you, pal. I don't know why you think they are. Kyle Kulinski and Emma Vigeland have the highest opinions of themselves based on nothing. They think all of their ideas are superior to everyone else's, and they look down on anyone that doesn't agree with them. You know, Tim talked about the fact that with the whole ivermectin thing, he argued with Joe about it. That's healthy, right? I mean, largely on most issues, they probably agree, but it was a good faith argument. I think this, you think this. That's healthy. That's what we're able to do on the right. We're able to agree on a lot of things, but disagree on others and have healthy debates. That's important to do, to make sure that the right ideas come to the surface. Because we all know that our values are kind of what connect all of us. And so our ideology is based in those values. So all the other stuff, you know, it comes out of our values, and then there's 20% of things we don't agree with here and there. But on the left, you can't do that. And I know you all know this, but when Tim calls it a cult, that's what it is. That's why the Anticasparians of the world didn't necessarily become right wing, but they're denouncing the left because you have to agree with every one of their extreme points or you are shit on. Tim also touched on something that I am hearing a lot lately from the left on shows like this. They'll say Donald Trump went on this, like in this case, Donald Trump went on Joe Rogan and just lied for 3 hours or whatever he said. I hear that all the time. But do you notice he didn't follow it up with an example? Now, trying to be fair, I understand that sometimes you don't give an example. It happens to me on here when I make a claim that I think is pretty well accepted among my audience, and I don't expound because maybe I just talked about it, or I feel like it's a little slow and it'll bore the viewer. But I see it so frequently on the left. Donald Trump lied, and then just move on. So I think the left's hope is that since they've spent 12 years calling Donald Trump a liar, that their audience just accepts that as fact and they can move on, but they get to slip it in, you know, without any pushback. But a genuine question I have is if there are Trump haters or non-Trump haters who just like, yeah, he lied about this, this, and this on Joe Rogan. Let me know. I watched the whole interview. I really don't know why he's saying he lied. But is anyone taking these folks seriously at this point? Like the Kyle Kulinskis, Emma Vigeland, Sam Cedar. No one's taken seriously for a long time. But Pac-Man, Destiny, people with this ridiculous ideology that can't ever find common ground or deviate from their talking points. I'm getting the impression, I have no data or anything to back this up, but I'm getting the impression that people are just kind of over it and realizing it's a little too far to the left for them. So I think their anger comes down to money and viewership. I don't think the grift is over, but I think there are enough people waking up that it's frustrating them, and people don't care as much about what they have to say anymore. And I like when Kyle goes, I go into Joe Rogan and I'm kind and I walk him through all this stuff, and then he goes full MAGA. It makes me look like a jackass. Yeah. I mean, I guess something positive came out of this. I mean, at least you're finally seeing what we've all known for years. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to change your behavior or that you're going to have some epiphany light bulb moment and realize the error of your ways. It's just funny to see you call yourself what we all already know you are. So what do you all think? Are folks like Kyle and Emma, is their message starting to be exposed for how insane it is? I mean, are people waking up and not engaging with them as much? Do you think that's why they're whining about this stuff? Or do you think the progressive left is as strong as ever or somewhere in the middle? What do you think? And then one other question, and this one's just for me. It seems like anytime I post a video with Tim Pool in it, there's not a ton, but a couple of comments like, I don't like that guy. I've just never had a problem with him, but if there's something I don't know about him, I'd love to know. So if someone dislikes him, or someone that doesn't necessarily dislike him, but you understand what people's issues are with him, please let me know. I mean, if there's something I should know that would make him less credible or something, you know, I don't want to say, hey, I don't have a problem with Tim Pool, if there are red flags I should be looking for. So I guess it could be that just there are people out there inevitably that aren't going to like some people in whatever video you post. But Tim Pool just seems kind of in the middle, benign to me. You know, even if you don't like him, you have to give him credit that he really will have anyone on his show, you know, from the craziest leftists to far right conservative crazy, you know. So if you guys know any knocks against him, I'd like to know and take a look into him myself. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you like watching videos of getting a good laugh at the expense of people who have just completely gone off the deep end of the left, then click on one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. Otherwise, as always, you guys mean everything to me, and I really, really appreciate you watching. The end.